Sylvia spent 3 years trying to fix her mother's loneliness. There was just one problem. Her mother was never lonely. Sylvia was the one who couldn't stand the silence. She was the one who walked into her mother's house and felt something missing. She was the one who kept suggesting, nudging, arranging, pushing. It took her 3 years and one quiet conversation to realize the truth. She wasn't trying to save her mother. She was trying to save herself from a fear she didn't know how to name. This is Stories of Connection. Today's story is about what happens when we mistake our own fears for our parents' needs, and what it almost cost them both. Sylvia's father died on a Tuesday. Heart attack, between breakfast and lunch. No warning. 43 years of marriage ended in a single afternoon. The kind of marriage where they had their own coffee mugs, their own chairs in the living room, their own rhythm that fit together like breathing. After the funeral, Sylvia watched her mother carefully, waiting for the collapse, waiting for the late-night phone call, waiting for the moment her mother admitted she couldn't do this alone. But Elaine didn't collapse. She grieved, deeply, quietly. But she didn't fall apart. She kept her routines: coffee on the porch every morning, Tuesdays at the garden center, Thursdays with her book club, Sundays at the diner she and Frank had gone to for decades. Same booth, same order. When Sylvia asked if that was hard, going there without Dad, Elaine smiled softly. "It's where I feel closest to him." Sylvia nodded, but she didn't believe her. When Sylvia visited, she felt the silence like pressure in her chest. The empty chair at the kitchen table, the half-full closet. Her mother eating dinner alone with the news on low volume. It looked like loneliness. It looked unbearable. So she started suggesting, "Mom, have you thought about the senior center? I like my book club. What about that grief group at church? I don't need a group to tell me how to grieve. Maybe you should meet someone." Elaine would look at her, patient and steady. "Rachel, I'm fine." But Sylvia heard something else. She heard, "I don't want to burden you." She heard, "I'm pretending to be strong." She heard, "Please don't stop trying." So she didn't. It started small. "Mum, Karen's father-in-law is single." "Good for him. He's kind. Maybe you two could get coffee." Elaine set down her tea. "I'm not interested in dating." "Not dating, just company." "I have company." "That's not the same." Sylvia didn't understand why her mother wouldn't even try. Every few months, another suggestion. A widower from church, a man from her old neighborhood, an online dating site for seniors who don't want to grow old alone. Each time, Elaine said no, gently, firmly, until one afternoon she said yes. Not because she was lonely, but because everyone kept telling her she should be. His name was Walter. Kind eyes, retired teacher, widowed 4 years earlier. Everything Rachel had hoped for. They had coffee, then dinner, then more dinners. Sylvia was thrilled. "See, Mum, isn't it nice to have someone?" Elaine smiled. "He's very kind." But Sylvia didn't see what was shifting underneath. Walter called every morning, every evening, sometimes in between. If Elaine didn't answer, he worried. If she wanted a quiet weekend, he felt rejected. If she said she was tired, he reminded her that 70 wasn't that old. He wasn't cruel, he was lonely, and his loneliness needed constant reassurance. 5 months in, Walter started leaving clothes at her house, then toiletries. Then he began talking about when we combine households. "It doesn't make sense for you to rattle around in this big place alone," he said. "We could sell it, start fresh." Sell it? The house she'd lived in for 43 years. the porch where she drank her coffee, the kitchen where Frank stood every morning making toast. Sylvia heard, "Start fresh." Elaine heard, "Erase." Walter wasn't wrong, but something inside her tightened. For the first time since Frank died, she stopped sleeping well. She found herself apologizing for needing quiet, for wanting mornings alone, for not answering the phone quickly enough. One evening, after Walter left, Elaine stood in her kitchen and felt something unfamiliar. Not loneliness, disappearing. She had built a peaceful life out of loss, and slowly, kindly, everyone was asking her to trade it in. The breaking point came on a Sunday. Walter reached across the diner table, the booth she and Frank had always sat in, and said, "You don't have to keep living in the past." Elaine pulled her hand back. She wasn't living in the past. She was living exactly where she wanted to be. She ended it the following week. Walter was hurt. Elaine was heartbroken, but not for the reason Rachel thought. She wasn't grieving the relationship. She was grieving how close she had come to abandoning herself. Sylvia didn't understand. "Mom, what happened? I thought you were happy." Elaine looked at her for a long time. Then she said quietly, "Sylvia, I wasn't lonely before Walter. I was peaceful." "But being alone and being lonely aren't the same thing." She reached for her daughter's hand. "For 3 years you've been trying to fix something that wasn't broken." Sylvia felt the words land heavier than she expected. "I just didn't want you to be sad." "I know," Elaine said gently, "but that was your fear, not mine." Then she added something Rachel would think about for a long time. "When you kept insisting I must be lonely, I started wondering if something was wrong with me, for not feeling that way." That was the cost. Not Walter, not the almost move. The doubt. The quiet erosion of certainty. Sylvia's chest tightened. She had almost convinced her mother that peace was a problem. That conversation changed everything. Sylvia stopped suggesting, stopped scanning the room for what was missing, started noticing what was there. The books stacked neatly on the table, the garden blooming out back, the steady rhythm of her mother's days. She saw something she hadn't seen before. Fullness. Not noise, not distraction. Fullness. Elaine is 74 now. She still drinks coffee on the porch every morning, still goes to book club on Thursdays, still sits in the same diner booth on Sundays. And when Sylvia visits, she doesn't see emptiness anymore. She sees a woman who loved deeply, grieved honestly, and built a life that fits her. Sylvia learned something she wishes she had understood sooner. Sometimes, when we look at our parents, we see our own fears reflected back. We see them alone, and we panic. We see their lives grow quieter, and we rush to fill the silence. But sometimes the silence isn't sadness. Sometimes it's peace. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do isn't to fix or suggest or rearrange their lives. It's to ask, to listen, and to trust. Because not every quiet life needs rescuing. Sometimes it just needs to be respected. If you've ever tried to fix something in a parent's life that didn't need fixing, what did it teach you? This is Stories of Connection, stories about family, time passing faster than you realize, and the words never spoken that still echo long after the room is quiet. Let's meet again next week. Until then, don't wait.